was having the worst year they've had in 67 years, and we were having the best year we've ever had. With big tax cuts, with big regulation cuts, we've rebuilt our military. We became independent in terms of energy. We're the energy leader of the world. We were having the best year we've ever had. By the way, African American, Asian American, Hispanic American unemployment numbers, the best in the history of our country. All things, and many other groups too, including women, including high school diploma, no high school diploma, college diploma. Everybody was doing better. The last thing that Russia wants, and China wants, and Iran wants, would be for Donald Trump to win. Yes,
just to follow up, what do you plan to do about that interference, sir?
Well, we're going to look at it very closely. You tell me that this came out a little while ago, and I've heard that it came out. It came out just a little while ago, and we're going to look at that very closely. But you started off with Russia. Why don't you start off with China? Do you think China's maybe a bigger threat? I mean, I think maybe it is. I mean, you'll have to figure it out. But we're going to watch all of them. We have to be very careful. The biggest risk that we have is mail-in ballots, because with the mail-in ballots, called universal mail-in ballots, it is a much easier thing for a foreign power, whether it's Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, many others, people, countries you wouldn't expect. It's much easier for them to forge ballots and send them in. It's much easier for them to cheat with universal mail-in ballots. So I think one of the things we'll have to look at is exactly that. But that's a big problem. That's a big problem. You saw in New York, they called the winner, but they have no idea what the vote is. Please, go ahead.
Mr. President, we've watched these negotiations go on for weeks. Do you think...
You very bad man.
Me all the time, they tell me how they're doing with Nancy and Chuck, but in my opinion, they're just using it as an excuse to try and, Chuck Schumer came out with a strong statement today that you have to get back into school because it's good for the economy.
You look like a stupid.
And our wonderful chief of staff, Mark Meadows, they're constantly on the phone with me. I'm totally involved with it, and we are going to do it in a way that's just much easier. We gave...
You can't evade me forever.
You talk about foreign countries cheating on the election. Well, the Democrats are cheating on the election because that's exactly what they're doing. If you look at what they're doing, even with these negotiations, that's an influence and an unfair influence on an election. But we're going to win anyway. Yeah, please go ahead.
When was the last time you spoke to Speaker Pelosi, though? We're at this historic moment. Why haven't you spoken
Well,
to her?
we'll see. We'll see what happens. But right now, they're not ready, and they're not ready because...
This is not a charade.
Terrible job running the cities and states, Democrat cities and states that are bleeding money, that have been so badly run. You take a look at Baltimore, and you take a look at so many different cities, including the ones I've already mentioned. Take a look at what's going on.
Shitface.
Going. For many years they've been bad. So all I'm doing is we're having it out. We're finally having it out. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, if you go ahead on your own on unemployment insurance, I'm wondering both where you're going to get the money to pay for that without Congress, and will people still get $600 a week?
We have the money. We have the...
Oh, you little tiny dick.
We have it, Justin. We have plenty of money. Yeah, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. You said that the pandemic is disappearing, but we lost 6,000 Americans this week. And just in this room, you have dozens of people who are not following the guidelines in New Jersey, which say you should not have more
No,
than
they don't
25.
have. This is a political activity.
Why are you saying such a bad thing, Mr. President?
You're wrong on that because it's a political activity. They have exceptions, political activity, and it's also a peaceful protest. So when you have...
It's down to you and me, Mr. Fly.
A number of, and to me they look like they all have, pretty much all have masks on, but, you have an exclusion in the law. It says peaceful protest or political activity, right? In fact, specifically, yeah, it says exactly political activity or peaceful protest, and you could call it political activity, but I'd call it peaceful. This is fake. They understand it better than anybody. And they asked whether or not they can be.
Holy cow. Oh.
He doesn't mention, or he mentions very late that China was in the report, because that's the way they are. They're not. If the press in this country were honest, it wasn't corrupt, if it wasn't fake, our country would be so much further ahead. But we're doing really great. Thank you all very much.